Imagine the scene. The roar of the engine is gone, replaced by the terrifying whistle of wind against a shattered cockpit. Below you, stretching to the horizon, is enemy territory. You've been hit. Your aircraft, a marvel of engineering, is now a falling coffin. Your only choice is to bail out, to trust your life to a silk parachute. The jump is a violent, disorienting blur. Then, a sudden jolt as the canopy opens. Silence. You drift down towards a landscape that is both beautiful and deadly. Every field, every forest, every farmhouse hides a potential threat. Your survival now depends not on your skill as a pilot, but on your ability to become a ghost. Once your feet touch the ground, the clock starts ticking. The crash site is a beacon, drawing enemy patrols like moths to a flame. You must move, and move quickly. But where? Hunger gnaws at your stomach, a constant, dull ache. Thirst parches your throat. The cold seeps into your bones, a relentless enemy in itself. Every rustle of leaves, every distant dog bark sends a jolt of adrenaline through your system. You are alone, hunted, and hundreds of miles from safety. This was the grim reality for thousands of Allied airmen during the Second World War. Their immediate fight was no longer in the skies, but on the unforgiving ground below. In this desperate situation, every single item you carry becomes critical. Your training kicks in. You remember the lessons? Avoid roads, travel by night, trust no one. But training can't fill an empty stomach. The physical exertion of evading capture is immense. You need energy. You need sustenance. But you cannot risk lighting a fire to cook, nor can you carry bulky, standard-issue meal kits. Your entire world has shrunk to what you can carry in your pockets. Your survival depends on your wits, your luck, and a few small, carefully prepared items designed for exactly this moment. It was a terrifying gamble, a lonely journey that many began but not all would finish. The psychological toll was just as heavy as the physical one. The isolation was crushing. The constant fear of capture, interrogation, and imprisonment wore down even the strongest minds. A pilot was a symbol of technological might in the air, but on the ground he was just a man who was tired, hungry, and scared. His best hope lay in the meticulous planning of people he would never meet. These planners had foreseen his plight. They had prepared a tiny, secret lifeline, a lifeline designed to provide not just calories, but a sliver of hope on the long, dangerous walk home. This was the world where the humble escape ration became a weapon of survival. Standard military rations were designed for soldiers in the field. They were functional, but often bulky. Think of the American K ration or the British 24-hour ration pack. They were meant to sustain troops in a combat zone where supply lines, however tenuous, still existed. They were not designed for a lone individual trying to melt into the landscape. An evading airman could not afford to be weighed down. He certainly couldn't be seen carrying a conspicuous army food tin. The solution had to be something entirely different. It had to be small, secret, and specialized. This was the genesis of the escape ration. These special rations were a closely guarded secret. Their very existence was classified. Why the secrecy? If the enemy discovered what these kits contained, they would know exactly what to look for when searching a captured airman. They might even create decoys. The secrecy was a layer of protection. Pilots were told little about the full contents, sometimes only discovering their secrets when they were forced to use them. These were not meals. They were survival instruments. They were designed with a single-minded purpose, to provide the maximum amount of energy in the smallest and most concealable package possible. The difference in philosophy was stark. A standard ration was about providing a balanced meal. It might include canned meat, biscuits, a powdered drink, and cigarettes. It was about maintaining a soldier's fighting strength over days or weeks. The escape ration, however, was about short-term, high-stakes survival. It focused purely on caloric density. The goal was to give a pilot enough fuel to keep moving for 48 to 72 hours. This was the critical window to put distance between himself and the crash site and hopefully make contact with a local resistance network. It was a nutritional sprint, not a marathon. This unique purpose drove every design choice. The packaging had to be discreet, easily fitting into a hidden pocket of a flight jacket or trousers. The contents had to be edible without any preparation. You couldn't count on having access to clean water or the ability to light a fire. Everything had to be consumed cold, on the move, in the dark. The escape ration was a masterpiece of nutritional engineering and military pragmatism. It was a testament to the idea that in a war of grand strategies and massive armies, the survival of a single individual still mattered immensely. It was a secret weapon, hidden in plain sight. The design of the escape ration was a masterclass in efficiency. Planners and scientists faced a clear challenge: how to pack thousands of calories into a container the size of a tobacco tin. Every single component was chosen for its energy-to-weight ratio. There was no room for anything superfluous. This was about pure, unadulterated fuel for the human body. The primary ingredients were fats and sugars, the body's most efficient sources of quick energy. These were not designed for a healthy diet. They were designed to keep a person alive and moving under extreme physical and mental stress. It was survival science in its most practical form. Let's look inside one of these remarkable kits. A typical British escape ration box might contain several blocks of high-energy chocolate, which was specially formulated to resist melting. It also included cubes of condensed milk or malted milk tablets, which were essentially solid blocks of sugar and protein. There were hardtack biscuits, an ancient food for mariners, chosen for their incredible durability and long shelf life. Some kits contained a small, dense fruit bar or a block of pemmican, a mixture of dried meat and fat perfected by North American indigenous peoples. Every item was a powerhouse of calories, ready to be eaten instantly. The variety of components was also intentional. Different kits were developed for different operational theaters. A pilot flying over the jungles of Burma would have different needs than one flying over the frozen landscapes of Norway. Rations for tropical climates included more salt tablets to combat dehydration from sweat, and water purification tablets were a standard feature. Kits for cold environments might contain higher fat content, as the body burns more calories just to stay warm. This adaptability showed an incredible level of foresight. The planners weren't just creating one kit, they were creating a system of survival tailored to the environment. This focus on caloric density and compactness has directly influenced modern survival kits. Today's emergency food bars, often found in the backpacks of hikers and the life rafts of sailors, are direct descendants of these World War II innovations. They use the same core principles: high fat, high sugar, low weight, and a long shelf life. The idea is to provide a massive energy boost in a small, portable form. The lesson from the World War II escape ration is clear. When survival is on the line, energy is king. The carefully engineered contents of these tiny boxes were a lifeline, providing the physical power to endure the unendurable. When you are alone and on the run, your equipment cannot fail. The designers of escape rations understood this perfectly. Nutritional value was only half the battle. The other half was durability. The ration had to survive the chaos of a plane crash, the shock of a parachute landing, and the rigors of a cross-country trek. It had to withstand extreme temperatures, from the freezing cold of high altitude to the baking heat of a summer day. It needed to be waterproof, crush-proof, and resilient. The packaging itself was a critical piece of engineering, often a sturdy, sealed metal tin that could take a serious beating. The contents were chosen not just for their calories, but for their ability to endure. The hardtack biscuits were nearly indestructible. The specially formulated chocolate had a higher melting point than commercial chocolate, preventing it from turning into a useless, sticky mess inside the container. Meat components were often heavily salted and dried, making them impervious to spoilage. Every item was tested against drops, impacts, moisture, and temperature swings. A ration that disintegrated or spoiled was worse than useless. It was a betrayal of the trust the pilot placed in his equipment. Durability was not a feature. It was a fundamental requirement. Beyond the physical needs, the planners also understood a deeper, more human element of survival morale. In the depths of despair, a small comfort can make all the difference. It can provide the mental strength to take one more step, to survive one more night. For this reason, many escape rations included items with little nutritional value but immense psychological impact. Small packets of coffee powder, tea bags, or sugar cubes were included. These items provided a taste of normalcy, a brief respite from the grim reality of the situation. The simple act of sucking on a sugar cube could provide a momentary burst of energy and a powerful psychological lift. This inclusion of morale-boosting items was a stroke of genius. It showed a profound understanding of human psychology under duress. The chocolate wasn't just fat and sugar. It was a familiar, comforting taste. The coffee wasn't just caffeine. It was a ritual that connected the evading pilot to a world of safety and civilization. It was a reminder of what he was fighting to get back to. This principle is still alive today in disaster relief and long-duration space missions. Providing small comforts is recognized as vital for maintaining mental resilience. The WWII escape ration wasn't just feeding the body, it was nurturing the will to survive. The ingenuity of the escape rations went far beyond their nutritional content. The British intelligence agency, MI9, was tasked with aiding downed airmen and prisoners of war. They developed an entire category of clandestine escape and evasion aids. And what better place to hide these tools than in the very items an airman was guaranteed to have? The ration tins themselves became Trojan horses, smuggling vital survival equipment past unsuspecting enemy searchers. To the casual eye, it was just a can of food, but to the trained pilot, it was a treasure chest of secrets. Some of the most creative concealments were found within these kits. A standard-looking food tin might have a false bottom, concealing a tiny, magnetized compass. The lids of some tins were designed so that, when balanced on a pin, they would orient themselves to north. Saw blades, small enough to cut through window bars or ropes, were sometimes hidden within the thick chocolate bars. Fishing line and hooks could be secreted inside a block of soap or a tube of toothpaste that was sometimes included. These were not just clever gadgets. They were lifelines, offering a means to navigate, escape captivity, or procure food. This practice of embedding tools in everyday items was a hallmark of MI9's work. They created flying boots with a hidden knife in the leg and whose upper portion could be cut away to look like civilian shoes. They hid maps printed on silk inside board games sent to POW camps. The escape rations were a natural extension of this philosophy. The enemy would check a pilot's pockets for a compass or a map, but they were unlikely to break open his emergency chocolate bar or dissect his ration tin. The element of surprise was everything. It was a brilliant fusion of survival science and espionage. This concept of multi-purpose items is a core tenet of modern survivalism and everyday carry culture. People today look for gear that serves more than one function. A paracord bracelet can be unraveled to provide strong rope. A credit card-sized tool can contain a small knife, a can opener, and a screwdriver. This idea of embedding utility in an innocuous package has its roots in the secret work of WWII. The lesson is simple but powerful. Think creatively about your gear. The most effective tool is often the one your adversary or your situation doesn't expect. A survival kit is useless if you can't get to it when you need it most. The moments after a plane was hit were pure chaos. The aircraft might be spinning, G-forces pressing the pilot into his seat, smoke filling the cockpit. There was no time to search for a backpack or fumble with a complex container. The escape ration and other critical survival items had to be accessible in seconds, even under extreme stress. This necessity dictated where and how these items were carried. It was a matter of life and death, decided in a heartbeat. Pilots' uniforms and flight gear were specifically designed with this in mind. Flight jackets and trousers were covered in pockets, many of them secured with zippers or sturdy snaps. The escape ration was typically stored in an easily accessible pocket on the thigh or chest. A pilot could retrieve it with a single practiced motion. This wasn't left to chance. Air crews drilled on emergency procedures, including how to bail out and how to access their survival equipment. They would practice these movements repeatedly, building muscle memory so that they could act instinctively in a crisis without having to think. This principle of immediate accessibility is absolutely critical in any survival situation. Whether you are a hiker, a sailor, or just a prepared citizen, your most important gear should be on your person. A first aid kit in the trunk of your car is of no use if you are injured 100 yards away from it. A fire starter at the bottom of a backpack is difficult to retrieve in a sudden downpour. The WWII airmen were taught to layer their gear. The most essential items, like the escape ration and a compass, were kept in their pockets. Less immediate items might be in a separate pack that could be attached to their parachute harness. This mindset is something everyone can apply. Think about what you would need in the first 60 seconds of an emergency. This might be a pocket knife, a small flashlight, or a personal medical kit. Keep these items on your person, in a pocket, or on a belt. Your larger bug-out bag or car kit contains the next layer of supplies, but your immediate survival depends on what you can reach right now. The desperate scramble of a pilot bailing out from a burning plane taught a permanent lesson. When disaster strikes, the only gear that matters is the gear you have within arm's reach. The story of the WWII escape ration is more than just a fascinating footnote in military history. It is a powerful case study in preparation, ingenuity, and a deep understanding of the fundamentals of survival. These tiny kits were the product of precise, cold-blooded planning. Scientists, nutritionists, and intelligence agents all collaborated to solve a very specific problem: how to keep a person alive, alone, and on the run. They were a microcosm of the wider war effort, where innovation and clever engineering were deployed to save lives and gain a critical edge. The core principles behind the escape ration remain as relevant today as they were in 1944. The focus on caloric density, portability, and durability is the foundation of all modern emergency food planning. The inclusion of morale-boosting items acknowledges that survival is as much a mental battle as a physical one. The clever concealment of tools within the rations is a masterclass in creative problem-solving. These are not just historical curiosities. They are timeless lessons in resilience. They teach us to think about survival not as a matter of brute force, but as a discipline of efficiency and foresight. For anyone interested in modern preparedness, the story of the escape ration offers a clear blueprint. Build your kits with a focus on energy, not just volume. Ensure your gear is durable and accessible. Think about multi-purpose items and how you can layer your equipment for different situations. Most importantly, understand the psychological dimension of a crisis. A small comfort, a familiar taste, can be a powerful tool for maintaining your will to go on. The lessons paid for by the experiences of downed airmen are a gift to us today. Ultimately, the escape ration is a symbol of hope. It was a tangible message sent from the safety of home to a pilot in his most desperate hour. It said, "We have not forgotten you. We have planned for this. Here is the fuel to get you home." It represented a belief in the value of the individual against the vast, impersonal machinery of war. That combination of meticulous scientific planning and profound human empathy is what makes the story so compelling. The secret weapon of the downed pilot was not a gun or a knife, but a small tin box filled with calories, secrets, and the enduring power of human ingenuity.